this video we're going to take a look at adding borders to your stitches in Stitch Mastery, so lines around stitches without any repeated stitches being involved. There are a few different reasons that you might want to use this. A couple of examples: you may wish to add a line to show where a marker should be placed, or indeed if you're creating a pattern with an afterthought heel or thumb, you might wish to have a border around the stitches that will be knitted twice if you're going to be instructing the knitter to use scrap yarn for the stitches that will then be removed to create the afterthought thumb or heel. So let's take a look actually with an example like that. I'm going to use the Marquee Select tool and select a number of stitches. Now I'm making sure that my border from the Marquee Select tool, the outline of the tool, is going all the way around the stitches, so we're not having these outlines within any of the stitches. You need to make sure it's completely out with the boundary of those stitches to ensure they're selected. So I've clicked and dragged and I'm holding my mouse button down. I'm now going to release the mouse button, and the stitches that were within the boundary are now grey, which means they're selected. And in the main menu we'll come to Border and place border on selected stitches. Now instantly we've got a menu with quite a few different options. Our border can be on all sides, or just top, bottom, left or right, which are denoted by north, south, west and east. Or you can have the top and bottom or left and right. But let's start with all sides. And you'll see that our default border is added, which is a red border, and we've got border default name in the key. First of all, you may decide that actually you've missed a stitch and you wish to have it slightly bigger. So looking at the border menu now, because we have a border in the chart, we have the option to add the existing border on selected stitches. So I'm going to click off, choose an extra stitch, come back, border, add existing border on selected stitches, and this is the border default name, and you'll see that extends my selection. If we want to change the appearance of the border, you need to select the border in the key and then come back to the border menu, and we only have the edit border properties selection available. Open that, and here we can change the name. So let's call this Afterthought Thumb. And you can change the position, so you could have north and east or whatever suits. You can change the colours, so let's choose purple. There are a few different line styles that we can use, so for this video I'm going to use dash dot. You can change the width of the border, so how thick that border line is, so let's increase that slightly. And finally, move border inwards. This gives you the option to have your lines coming slightly into the stitch so that they're not directly over the grid lines, and in a moment we'll see why that's a useful thing. So I'm just slightly and hit OK. And as you can see, in fact we'll just come to fit to width so that we're slightly closer in. As you can see, our border lines are mostly over the grid lines exactly, but on the south side we're slightly above the line. And I mentioned that I would explain why that is useful. If you have a scenario where you have two sets of stitches side by side that are in different borders, you're going to come into some problems if your border lines are all set to the default 1, because they will overlap. So if I quickly put these other stitches in the row above into a border, I'll do south side only. So my new border is with the red right along the grid line, and that means we can't see the top of the Afterthought Thumb border. So what we can do is select the Afterthought Thumb border, and on the north side we want to bring that inwards just a little bit. So that might even be enough to make it more visible, but we can also change the red border and move it in a little on the south side. And that means that the two lines will sit side by side rather than directly overlapping. But we don't actually need this border, so I'm just going to delete that from my chart. Now, it may be that you're happy having your border lines slightly into the stitch, but you don't like the appearance in your key, and there's a nifty way to get around that. So we're going to create a new border, very similar, select a different stitch altogether, place a border on all sides. I'm going to edit that border to very similar, but without the inwards, so leaving it as one so that it's in line with the grid lines. Incidentally, you can come outwards and that brings it beyond the stitch, but we don't need to do that. We want this to be on one exactly. So this is exactly how we want this border to appear. So let's change this one to Afterthought Thumb. Let's select the one that the symbol is not what we want, hide that from the selection, so edit and hide selection, and then we can simply take the border off of this stitch. We still have the listing in the key, but it is a bit neater